This is setting up to be a very unique season for Trey Lance. He has not had an offseason quite like this before, in a good way, maybe, right? Sam Darnold comes in. We just talked about Sam Darnold, and looks like if you're Darnold, you walk in believing maybe you can be the starter. Kyle Shanahan has a history of wanting to believe in Sam Darnold. He finally gets him. So the question is, does having Sam Darnold around make Trey Lance better in any way? Because we can agree he needs to get better in order to become the starting quarterback of the 49ers.
It's weird. I saw Kawakami kind of tweeting about the situation and how you sign a guy like Sam Darnold, even with Purdy on the shelf, it has recreated the whole Trey Lance conversation again. Evaluating every practice, evaluating throws relative to the rep count and all that stuff. It's just back with now Sam Darnold. And that doesn't even account for, I'm sure they're going to be like, if he's healthy, he's going to be the starter, that being Brock Purdy. But I thought yesterday that Trey Lance was handed the job, right, going into year 2.
Yeah.
And someone had tweeted at me, well, isn't anyone in his situation once you make an enormous trade? I thought, yeah, for the most part, in modern day football, once you make an enormous trade, by the second year, you kind of pivot. I would say the difference is, and this is what makes the 49ers very unique, is that most teams that acquire one of those first, second, or third picks are usually not a Super Bowl contender, right? Like the Panthers just made this enormous trade. No one's going to view them as a Super Bowl contender for the next couple of years. That's just not the way to, unless Bryce Young immediately is like the MVP of the league by the second year. It's kind of what made Mahomes unique when he got handed the job, but he got the job and he just shot like a rocket ship and never looked back. So there weren't even any questions about they probably shouldn't have traded Alex, right? It was just, that conversation ended. I'm pretty sure his first start ever, year 2, I know he started week 17 or whatever, his rookie year, was against the Chargers. He threw like 4 or 5 touchdowns, and it was like, oh, it's on. And
against Rivers, yeah.
I do think, every other position in the NFL beside like kicker, once the season goes, is a constant competition, even in games, right? Like a running back could be hot. Christian McCaffrey comes off, you ride Elijah Mitchell. Maybe Ayuk gets hot. You don't throw the ball as much to Debo. Kittle's hot. You're not throwing it to Debo and Ayuk, right? Bosa is taking up double teams next year because maybe Hargrave and Armstead are rolling. Like, it's every other position is like, it's a group effort where quarterback's not. But I do think in the offseason, when you get pressed, and it happens in college all the time, like whenever you hear college quarterbacks talk about, like, when I first got to Michigan, there were these 3 other quarterbacks. When I first got to Alabama, this was the quarterback room. It was just I had to keep swinging my way to get to the 2nd spot. I started at the 5th spot. It's a very healthy environment, which kind of ends in the NFL, right? Until you kind of get thrown from the heap and you have to kind of start back like Sam's doing. And I wonder if, like, it's just going to bring out the best in you. Like, there was just going to be a tangible, like, there wasn't that with year 1 because Kyle said from the jump, and it was a fact, he has no chance to beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, even though we all kind of wanted it to happen. But Kyle rigged the game, and then looking back 2 years later, it wasn't possible. Last year, they rigged it toward Trey. Nowadays, you don't have to rig it. Let's roll. Trey, in theory, should have a big advantage because he knows all the terminology from Kyle. Maybe there's some carryover over the years that Sam has. But if I'm Sam, I'm in that playbook balls deep up until the draft, right? Until we get on the field, learning this thing. Because I'm thinking like we've been talking about injuries and stuff. But I think that's very healthy. That happens until you become like Nick Bosa or Trent Williams or George Kittle, like where like I'm the best player at my position. And I still work my ass off. Every other player, like Ayuk still has to grind, right? I mean, Charvarius needs to grind. Like if he starts sucking and they had some other corners, like he would eventually get replaced. It's just, is that the nature of the sport? Like if Fred Warner just became looking like some low-level starter, he would no longer just be on scholarship, right? I mean, that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
But a quarterback, it kind of does. And it can work to the detriment of a player, I think. And I think Trey has kind of been given the crazy NFL reality fast in his career. It's been a lot like Alex, a very unique early on career.
Even his college career was really unique the way it ended. Had 1 game his last year. There was no competition. He was the starter going into that year. I don't know. 2019 is 1 year as a starter. Was there a competition with him and one of the other North Dakota State quarterbacks going into that year?
I think he redshirted his first year because what's his name that's on
Easton
the
Stick?
Chargers. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
he just became the starter. I would assume that he won the job in the offseason. A program like that, are they just handing a guy a job? Maybe they just knew he was better than everyone else.
A program like that generally doesn't have multiple quarterbacks with that kind of talent level, right, that they're competing with, although they do have good quarterbacks. I don't know exactly what he competed with, but the point is he hasn't really competed for a job he could really win or lose.
He did lead them to a natty, right?
Oh, yeah, it was incredible. He earned it. I'm just saying, was he in a competition? Like you said, last year wasn't a competition it was handed to him. The year before, you could tell yourself it was a competition, but if you were him, you knew I'm not winning this job. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the quarterback of this team. So there wasn't as much really to lose. You could kind of be content being the backup. There was no shame in losing it because it was rigged from the beginning. So he's been in 2 rigged competitions in the NFL. In college, it's not so much rigged. It's just you're the starting quarterback. You've earned it, and he had earned it. But this is very different. Now, like you said, he should have the advantage of knowing the offense and knowing his teammates. But Darnold knows McCaffrey, if that's worth anything. And Darnold, in theory, knows what the defense is doing in practice because Steve Wilkes is calling the defense, a defense that he practiced against all of last year when he was healthy. So it's not like Darnold, or it's not like Trey has every advantage here. But, here's what I go back to with Trey. If you want to be optimistic about Trey, one of the reasons the Niners loved him was because of what kind of guy they think he is. And it does seem like, based on the way he handled last year with Brock, they only came out of 2022 even believing stronger that they were right about the human being. And as we talked about with Javon Hargrave, it's really something they emphasize. And it wasn't just the kind of teammate. They felt like he had a very good understanding of, he was a fast learner coming out of college, like he was smart. Part of that evaluation had to also be, what kind of competitor are you? And I think one thing that's hurt Trey's ability to compete is that he has not sped up to NFL speed yet. And it's sort of hard to assert yourself when you haven't physically gotten comfortable yet. And I think we can agree he has not looked comfortable in NFL games yet, especially with the thing that you think would be natural, which is running the ball. So, part of this is like, you want to see the Niners have played in big games almost every year under Kyle Shanahan. I mean, they've also had seasons where they were terrible, but they've had a lot of years in which they've had to overcome adversity. That's what it takes.
Well, they never start fast.
They never start fast. Yeah. So here's some, Trey's, this is a lot of adversity that Trey Lance has to work his way through between being given the job, getting hurt, having the second surgery, watching Brock Purdy take the team to the doorstep of the Super Bowl. Now you're right back in it. You think it's going to be your offseason, and then they sign Sam Darnold. So if Trey comes out of this thing on the other end as the 49ers starter, even though he's yet to really prove a lot on the field, I do think he's a guy that his teammates are seeing him go through quite a bit. We'll have to prove some things behind the scenes. And this is an opportunity for him to do it. Yeah, that's how Brock got everybody's respect, overcoming a ton of adversity. The odds against him.
I think one thing that's going to be clear, at least in the spring practices, will be accuracy. I think feeling like accuracy was something that clearly made them very uncomfortable by the time the fall came. And it's why, remember, they started talking about the Jimmy situation like in early August. And that was a reflection of, you and I went to some of those practices, the ball could fly all over the place. Now, it could look good, but it could also could look so bad where Kyle goes, well, if this is against, week 2, Denver, we're in trouble. At the time, we thought Denver was going to be really good. And they ended up somehow losing to them like 11-10, but that's a whole nother story. But the point is, accuracy is something that means a lot to him because plays are going to be relatively basic in his offense. I'm going to tell you where to throw almost, and it's going to work if you listen. And Jimmy was hit or miss on it. And Trey clearly was hit or miss on it in his limited opportunity. And Brock was not. And it was like they started rattling off 30 plus every game. Because the one thing you can say about this team is come week 1, assuming relative health, whoever the starting quarterback is, has a shitload of weapons.
Yeah.
There just aren't, there's just no excuses. You have multiple max players at their position. And that's not even counting Ayuk. Juwan Jennings can come on as a fantastic, third wide receiver. He randomly does it throughout a season. And I'm not even, banking on yet that just the natural progression of Ty Davis Price, LSU guy. Danny Gray was a high thought of valued prospect. One of those two guys could immediately become kind of a player to go on with Christian McCaffrey. So all of you just got, you have a lot of talent invested in that area. They just re-signed their center. I don't give a shit who their right tackle is. I don't think the difference is going to be that different between McGlinchey beside their paycheck. We saw the guards last year. Like Banks really came on to have a fantastic season given how his rookie year went. And the Burford rotation maybe doesn't even have to rotate anymore. And you feel pretty good about your offensive line. So, whoever the quarterback is, and this was why we were bullish on Trey before we even knew that much about Trey going into year 2. Because God, you just can't ask for much more. Could he be, that's why we were betting on him rookie of the year 2 years ago, but then he didn't get to play. And then last year, it's God, he could have a big season. It's Sam could fit this mold. Trey could, if you're just a solid player, I think most people around the NFL is people around the Niners probably acted like Purdy was a little too close to Mahomes and Herbert. He's not that, but he's playing well. And with these weapons around, you can kick ass and take names, right? There is no, and with the play caller, we've watched enough Kyle Shanahan
and the defense.
And the defense.
Yeah, I mean,
you got a lot of things going for you.
Not only did they start 3-4 last year, they started 3-4 with losses to the Bears, the Broncos, and the Falcons.
Didn't all those teams drafting pretty high?
Well, none of them made the playoffs.
Well, the Bears had the number 1 pick.
Yep, the Bears have.
The Broncos, I think, have the 7th pick. Seattle has, and the Falcons
Apparently
are drafting
no salary
pretty high
cap.
too. No.
For Sean Payton. You're right. And then Brock took over, and it was 33 points against Miami, 35 against Tampa, 21 in a win over Seattle, 37 against Washington, 37 against the Raiders, 38 against the Cardinals, 41 against the Seahawks in the playoffs. So,
well, it's why that they're going to stay pretty loyal to Purdy if healthy, because he's proven it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he has earned, when he comes back, they're holding the top spot for him. But, just as to be fair to Trey, the things you say about Sam, well, he's only this old, he's only 25. Well, he'll be 26 this season, right? He hasn't played football for a guy who's young. Trey has not played a lot of football for a guy who's young, but he is young and has yet to really get a real opportunity to grow. And there's one way to grow, and that's to play. The one thing you say for Sam, he's played a ton of bad football, but he's seen a lot. Just like Alex Smith, he'd seen a lot, for better or worse, and came through it on the other side.
This comment that you brought up, Trey is never progressing if he doesn't play. If you're not going to play him, might as well move on. That's not the way the business works. The 49ers gave him a ton of money. They acquired the asset, and it's on him to be good enough. His value, it's not like they have the quarterback situation figured out. Might as well move on. Why? If you still like the guy and work, yeah. I mean, because his value, why the trade conversation is dumb, unless they're totally want to move on, which how could they justify that given their health status? That their only healthy quarterback is literally Sam Darnold, who, as the time of recording this, isn't even official yet. That his I don't think the highest pick you could get to me would be a 4th. Because you see some of these quarterbacks over the years that have gone former high picks that get traded for a 2nd or 3rd. When Sam got traded, he had played a lot, right? So you had a lot of tape, good and bad, but there was just a lot of information. The information isn't positive enough to be well, there's not a lot of information, but his value is not very high.
No. His value is highest to you because he's just one of the quarterbacks that you have that knows your offense, and you need quarterbacks.
Yeah. Now, I would say next year, if it plays itself out, or you don't think you eventually just ultimately the reason that the Warriors punted on Wiseman was money, right? Because next year with the tax, it was going to be a $12 million salary. It was actually $90 million. This doesn't pencil. The financial ramifications of Trey are set because they gave him the signing bonus. Now, it gets a little more complicated after this year, right? If, let's say, he ends up not really playing this year, and he's the backup or the third string quarterback, the writing's on the wall, right? They wouldn't be picking up his 5th-year option. Does it make sense to just kind of move on after this season? That would be a different conversation than where we sit right now. It doesn't behoove them at all to not at least let the offseason and training camp play out, right?
Yeah. No rush. And again, you don't have other quarterbacks who know your offense.
Is there a pick that if you were John Lynch you would entertain? Like, how high would I have to get?
Well, we know you would trade him for a 1 and you would trade him for a 2, a high 2.
You think if I offered pick, 32, so I'm just going to pick I don't know who this team is, but just kind of a random 2, pick 50. Would you trade him right now for pick 50?
I don't think you can do it right now because Brock's not healthy.
I got a text today from a dude on a team that needs a lot. It was like, honestly, this draft kind of stinks.
So you're saying
not us talking about like Will Andersons and the high guys, but just overall, to me, that reflects more like picks 20 to like 120, kind of that meat of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks.
I think you have to think about doing it for pick 50. I don't think part of it is, what do they really believe? Is it top of the head scratch? Oh, he's looking good. If you think there's still a 10%, 20% shot that he turns into a good quarterback, he's already your guy. I wouldn't be in a rush because you still need you need quarterbacks. This team has proven you need multiple quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The likelihood that you end up needing him is higher than the likelihood that your second round pick helps you win a Super Bowl this year.
Well, assuming health, would you bet on game 1, 3 quarterbacks are in pads and a helmet for the San Francisco 49ers against whoever they're playing?
You're saying like you have to do that just because of the way your season ended?
Well, I don't know. You would have to say that would be in play, right? Those are conversations
how many guards you need. If you plan on rotating 5 guards week 1, you probably can't have 3 quarterbacks dressed.
That's true. Your kicker competition bleeds into week 1.
Yeah.
You rotate who kicks field goals.
Burford plays left guard this series and right tackle this series. Do you have to have a separate kickoff guy? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, Burford. It's like, hey, the goal this year, this offseason, is to no longer rotate at guard.
Niners are banking on a chance to change the emergency QB rule. Yeah, it'd be good.
I give the Chargers credit. Did you see there that what they threw out is the no longer have a team. They had a 4-game window. So like if you're an 8-9 team, I think it would have worked for the Cowboys. If there's a 4-game difference between the team that wins a wild card, so it's usually that 4th seed that plays in the shittiest division, wins it under 500, hosts the 5 seed, who often, if they're in a good division, can be a 12 or 13 win team. Like, that should no longer be allowed.
But they're saying there has to be a 4-game differential.
That's what they proposed. My proposal originally was like, if I have more wins than you, I should host. And then I thought, well, if it's like 12-11, you could argue if you're less than double-digit wins. So if you can win a division at 9 or 8 or worse, you should automatically give up your home game, especially if you're hosting a team that's won 12
What
games.
if the other team is 110?
It could get dicey situation fast. That's why, the competition committees, some of these arguments probably last for a little while.
But it's just arbitrary. But 4 games is a lot of games, right? The difference between
I would say 11 and up, and you're a single-digit division winner, so it means 9 or below.
Yeah.
Should you be able to host? Someone's like, well, why does the divisions? No, the divisions would still matter. That's regional rivalries. Like, every game matters in the NFL.
You could argue it would make teams try to win like a Week 18 game.
Totally agree.
Even if their division is wrapped up. Now, how many times does a 9-win team have their division wrapped up by the end of the season? Actually, last year, Jacksonville was 2 games. Well, I don't remember exactly how it played out. Week 18. Jacksonville ended up winning the division.
Jacksonville had to win Week 18 against Tennessee.
Yeah,
but they won the division with 9 wins.
But
right?
yeah. But
would you have a problem like a 9 and 8 team should give up? Here's the thing: the 4 seed plays the 5 seed, and typically, I would say on average, the 5 seed's like 11 minimum.
Yeah, last year Jacksonville was the 9. Jacksonville had 9 wins. The Chargers had 10.
Yeah, that's true.
First of all, the Chargers. No, you guys, not you guys.
I would say 2-game difference, and you have
Chargers
to be
are looking around their division like, fuck, we're not going to win this thing for a decade.
Neither are the Raiders.
Not with Jimmy in Vegas.